Welcome to Talking Heads, a project of the Africa Centre based in Cape Town. Each week, we bring you the experts, mavericks, and the thought leaders who are demanding we think differently about who and what it means to be African.
Speak truth to power. While the phrase may seem hackneyed, it does endure. This is because it embodies a belief that, amidst the turmoil of our age, also endures. The belief that power corrupts, and so requires regulation, requires tempering. And the only thing that can soften the pull to absolute power is another kind of power. The power of truths, of showing, of calling out, of mirroring, of saying.
You're watching a special edition of Inside Africa.
The new constitution is today 19 years old and counting.
It can be argued that along with artists and writers and activists.
My name is Utan Conrad Tehide. I'm an anti-corruption crusader.
And many more, journalism is a profession which, while in practice might fall short, in theory is about speaking truth to power. At least the intent behind journalism seems to be to reveal and to shine a light, particularly in murky corners. It is not easy or simple, neither is it in itself incorruptible, but we could say that a world with no journalists would be one with a lot less truth.
Hello everyone, welcome back. I'm Chika Oduah. Right now we're going to briefly discuss the issue of...
Chika Oduah is a journalist. In her blog, Afrocentric Confessions, she says if she wasn't a journalist, she'd be a dancer. And if not that, a musician or an anthropologist. But as life would have it, she's a journalist. Her work has appeared in Al Jazeera, the Huffington Post, Bella Niger, the UK Guardian, CNN, This is Africa, National Geographic, and many more. I am Yewande Omotoso, and today I'm talking with Chika Oduah about her work as a journalist. Chika, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Yewande. Nice to be on.
You were born in Nigeria and raised in Atlanta, Georgia. You studied journalism in the US, and then you worked there for several years before moving back home to the continent. While such moves need not be political or even have reasons attached to them, is it significant that you came back to Nigeria to work?
Yeah, well, the goal was always to come back to Africa at least. I've been saying this since I was a child. I wasn't sure exactly which country. So first it was Kenya, and then it became Ghana, then it was South Africa. And so finally I said I need to conquer my fears and do Nigeria, since that's the place where I was born. So that's always been the goal since I was a child. So I think my life in the United States was just about grooming myself to prepare adequately to come back.
Why is coming back important? Why was that important to you and for so long?
I think it was just important just because of my own personality, my own ambitions, just who I am. I can't really describe it with words. It just was an innate feeling that I needed to come back. But I felt that's where I belonged. Here was where I belonged. I felt the United States was solely just for the educational aspect, some social skills, but obviously to bring that back to Nigeria. I don't know exactly why it was important. It just was self-evident.
It's an interesting time to be moving to Africa, even to Nigeria specifically, especially as a journalist. In January this year, 2014, Nigeria implemented a law that effectively makes being homosexual illegal. Around the world, not just on the continent, freedom of speech seems a luxury rather than a right. Journalists are arrested for doing their work. A lot of voices are silenced. What's your experience been reporting at such a time?
I think Nigeria is more open to media and press freedoms compared to other African countries. Of course, Nigeria still has its issues, but ever since the transition to democracy, the media in Nigeria has been a marketplace of ideas. There are certain pockets where journalists are more free to express themselves. I would say, of course, Lagos, of course, Abuja, even in Kano, you'd find a buzzing media marketplace in Kano. Public officials in Nigeria, I believe, are more accessible than in the United States.
I know there is a range of reasons why the spotlight is on Africa to go to the rather more shadowy reason. Nigeria is currently in the spotlight, particularly in the world media, for terrorism and religious fundamentalism, specifically the terrorist group Boko Haram.
The leader of Nigeria's Islamist militant group Boko Haram has called for more attacks against schools.
Nigerian forces have begun a military offensive against Islamist strongholds in the northeast of the country.
A shadow that has always been there and has been growing progressively longer and wider. You traveled to Chibok, the site where over 200 schoolgirls were kidnapped. You wrote of this experience in your article, In the Land of Nigeria's Kidnapped Girls, that was published in The Atlantic. Many of us, especially those living far away, we follow the news, we think of the families affected, but you write the news. What's your experience of reporting on this travesty that seems bound to continue? And what truths and reality are most people around the world not privy to about the situation on the ground in Chibok?
I think with reporting the Chibok abduction, the key is accuracy and respecting the rights of the people. There's been a lot of journalists on ground. After the Chibok abduction, it took about 3 weeks for the president to make a statement, and it took about 4 weeks for the international media to really take attention. And so once they became interested in the story, it was a media frenzy. Everyone, everywhere was trying to get into Nigeria, get a ticket, get first accreditation, and it became a monstrosity in itself for people trying to get into Chibok, trying to bring the families up, trying to do this and do that. And I think it became a little bit disrespectful, and I think that to be a credible journalist and to be mindful of the people that you're talking about, and it's not about you getting a story, it's about the people being respected, and I think that should come before the story itself. Going to Chibok was just at the right time. I don't think I would go anytime. It just came at the right time. But I really tried hard to make sure I portrayed the families and what they're going through with accuracy and with a level of sensitivity.
This is a complex situation in Nigeria, and it's very nuanced. Sometimes news just has to be it's black and white, and it's often difficult to give the grey. And there is a lot of grey. It's seldom black and white.
Right. I mean, the nuances are part of the story. It's more of a story than the black and white. Yeah. You're exactly right, Yewande.
You spoke about it earlier, just talking about entertainment and all the other reasons that Africa is of interest, I guess, to the world. It's easy to get mired down by the bad news, though, not just on the continent, but the world over. There are civil wars, there are massacres, genocides, poverty, there's slavery. And sometimes it seems as if journalism relies on the bad news. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? How, as a journalist, do you manage the inevitability of mostly covering bad news? And how do you balance that? How do you not get bogged down by it?
Yeah. Well, the popular saying in journalism is, if it bleeds, it leads.
They said what?
They seem to be obsessed with bad news, but for me, the reason why I try to get my hands in so many things is because I want to have a range of stories. It's not just the sadness and the deaths that I'm reporting. So for me, the culture is kind of what keeps me going and keeps me sane. Because, yeah, you're right, you can definitely get saddened by the news. And I think that's what's happening with Western audiences. All they see is the tragic stuff. There's not enough of the beauty of the culture that's being presented to the world. But that's what keeps me going, the beauty of the culture.
To date, what's the most uplifting or one of the most uplifting and inspiring stories you've ever covered, particularly about the continent?
I would have to say I was doing some photography work, and what we were doing was moving around, visiting some women-focused NGOs throughout Nigeria. We went to at least 20 sites all around the country. And just seeing what these women were doing to combat domestic violence, to combat human trafficking, sex slavery, miseducation of women, and this type of thing. It was absolutely beautiful. There was one incident where we came, the journalists came, and all the women stood up and started clapping for us and started giving us food and kissing us, just typical African hospitality. But just seeing how these women are sacrificing their lives to raise their communities, because as the saying goes, if you educate a woman, you educate the community.
You've been on the continent now for almost 2 years. What do you see for yourself in the future as a journalist, and what are you committed to?
I'm just committed to being here on the continent, completely immersing myself in everything that I can, really the traditional cultures. That's what makes my heart beat. So I look forward to getting more into video, more into television journalism, specifically with documentaries, and really documenting the cultures that we're losing. And I'm talking about traditions, Asante women traditions in Ghana, and we're talking about coffee making in Ethiopia. And I'm talking about, the tradition of making skirts in Tanzania. All these ancient traditions, and really showing them to the world so that we won't forget them and so that we're inspired by them. That's really what I'm looking forward to doing in the future, in the very near future.
It sounds absolutely amazing, Chika. I really just want to dip my hat and say well done for all that you are doing and the difference you're making. And I can't wait to watch those documentaries.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks for speaking to us. To find out more about Chika Oduah and to listen to other podcasts, visit www.talkingheads.org.za.